Welcome, 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 welcome,
Welcome, welcome, welcome, welcome,
welcome, welcome to the Rum. Hey, all right, here we are, Constantine.
Hello.
Welcome to the Rum.
Welcome to the Rum.
Constantine, we have... Wait, what?
We left out part of it. That's fine.
Wait. So I'm Bryan.
I'm Constantine.
And
we are
the Rum. So Constantine, we have rum royalty. Let's save all of our updates for all the other things, but we have a global rum ambassador. We have rum royalty.
Global rum ambassador.
We have Mr. Ian Burrell on. Ian, how the hell are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah. Can't complain. The sun's out here in the UK, which is nice. And apparently it's gonna be like a 5 days, which is like a big summer out here of sun. So very happy. Good rum drinking weather. Although any pretty good for rum.
I tell you, but depending on the weather, I heard a story about you, Ian, and I was talking to Sly. I saw him in Guyana, and he mentioned that you were behind the stick and somebody paid for 2 rum and cokes with the last consignment. Is that true? Did that happen?
No, it wasn't last consignment. It was an Appleton 21-year-old only 21-year-old. But the reason why I think that story may have come up was back then a lot of bartenders like myself were snobbish about drinking premium rums with mixers. As opposed to basically saying, as long as you're drinking the rum and you're enjoying it, then you drink it any way you want, as such. But so what it was a case of this guy came into the bar. He was, first of all, it was like, what rum should I have? I had 300 rums behind the bar on my back shelf. And he then said, okay, what's the most expensive rum you have? I'm like, here we go, Johnny Big Bollocks. More money than sense. So I just said, you know what? Let's just give you a 21-year-old Appleton made by Auntie Joy, 21 years old. I explained to him about tropical aging and that type of stuff. He said, great, brilliant. I have I have one of those with Coke. And at the time I was selling 21-year-old for about $30 a shot. So he was like, I was like, with Coke? No. You can't have it with Coke, mate. You have to sip it. You have to savor it. Smell the orange peel notes and the aging. It's 21 years in the Caribbean. The tropical aging. So I went through all of that, and he said, "Whoa." He said, "Listen, I understand all that, but my favorite drink is a rum and Coke. Now, if you're saying that rum is good, won't it make my rum and Coke a better rum and Coke?" And I was like, "You know what, bro? You're paying my wages. You're the customer. Who am I to argue with you? But just do me a favor. If you're going to have a single shot," he said, "No, make it a double." I'm like, wow, okay, $60 for a double shot of rum. He said, if you're going to have a double shot, and you want it with Coke, have equal amounts of Coke, have a big block of ice inside there. So you can still get the sweetness and the effervescence and the bubbles of the Coke, but you also be able to taste the rum, the 21-year-old rum. Or if you're going to drown it with loads of Coke, you might as well have any rum inside there. So at least appreciate the rum that you have with your favorite mixer. And he says, great. So he ended up having 3 of them. Dropped me like $50 as a tip and said, "Ian, that's the best rum and Coke I've ever had." And after that, I never prejudged a customer that came into my bar that asked for either an expensive product with their favorite mixer, because it's about their rum experience. Whether I believe that you should be drinking this rum in this particular way and that's the best way to have it. No, if you want it with Coke, have equal amounts of Coke in there, big block of ice, don't need any garnish. You can now taste your Coke, you can now taste the rum and appreciate the different rums inside there. And I'm going to charge you $60 because I'm not going to charge you for the Coke. For the pleasure of doing that. And this guy came in several times doing the same thing. He had money, didn't know who he was, but he could afford it at the end of the day. So it wasn't last consignment. I've got actually over in my corner over here, I do have a couple original demi-johns from the 1940s or 50s, but I've got a few of those. I used to collect lots of old vintage rums, and I've got them dotted around all over the place. But so I could give someone a rum and Coke with an original demi-john rum, Old Navy consignment, but I might save that for another day.
No, I think that's totally fair. And well, that's hilarious. I mean, I'm in a similar boat too now, Ian, where we're just talking, like, I work at a tiki bar of all places now. Nice. And somebody came in, I bring in rums from my collection. So I brought in a Habitation Bellier last ward, and someone didn't want it neat. And I was just like, okay, what can I do it for you? And they wanted an old fashioned. So fortunately, I was just like, well, hey, this is going to be the best old fashioned you've ever had. If you like super punchy, you know what you want. So let's rock and roll.
Exactly.
Well, and even just zooming out, Ian, so it's unlikely that any of our listeners don't know who you are. So
there's still quite a few people that don't know what I do.
Well, they're uncultured swine. Uncultured. But well, then for our listeners who may not know your story, Ian, would love to hear about, intro into rum and how you've become one of the leading voices that's been spearheading the category and a key figure in helping elevate it from perceptions of spiced and sweet, and no disrespect to any brands, but helping it elevate the category to where it is today. So we'd love to hear from the ambassador directly.
Yeah, well, I mean, I started back, it was a couple of years back. It was in the 90s, mid-90s. I was made, first of all, after leaving school, started bartending. Was going to take some time off just before I go to further education. Loved it. Built up my confidence, just making drinks, making cocktails. I majored in things like maths and theatre studies and English and chemistry. So all of these spirits behind me became my elements, and the cocktails became my compounds. So it was applied chemistry, making up all these drinks and having fun. And I used my theatre skills and acting skills to play the part on the bar, and the bar itself was my stage and the customer was my audience. So I started doing that. And more importantly, especially coming from a very poor background, I started making some money. I was like, do I really want to go to further education and not have any more money now when I'm getting paid to have fun, getting free drinks and things like this? So I continued doing that and just loved it and took to it like a duck to water. So that was mid-90s, early 90s, mid-90s. And then through some of my other careers, I used to do some voiceover for radio. And I did a voiceover commercial for the launch of Appleton and J. Ray Nephew UK. So the general manager, she came into the studio when we was recording, and when she found out I did the advert. When she found out I worked in a bar, she said, "Oh, do you have Ray Nephew in Appleton?" I said, "We do, but I normally bring it in. Either my family brings it in, and I put it behind the bar and sell it from there." So it was the only place in Camden Town in London where you could get Ray Nephew in Appleton. She said, "Oh, brilliant! Would love to come down. Will we bring some bottles?" I'm like, "Thank you, hell yeah!" So I became one of the first accounts that really started pushing Ray Nephew and Appleton back in like 95, 96. Then they came up with this crazy idea a few months later, after doing a few events for them. They came up with this crazy idea of why not hire Ian like 3 days a week to talk to other bartenders about our rum, effectively making me the first rum ambassador in the UK. Or rum brand ambassador, I should say, in the UK. I'd never heard of it. It was my first business card. I even had to wear a suit. I'm like, oh my God, knocking on doors, going into bars in a suit. I didn't feel comfortable, but I was trying to get them to take rum. I was trying to get them to take Ray Nephew, which was the hard. It's 126 proof. All rums out there were 37.5% alcohol. So they were like, why do we need Ray Nephew? We got Bacardi. Why do we need Appleton Special? We've got Captain Morgan's. I'm like, no, but this is Jamaica rum. This is a rum from Jamaica. Those are rums from Puerto Rico and rums from who knows where Captain Morgan was from at that particular time. So it was a hard slug. But what it did, it grounded me. But it also meant I was communicating and talking to other bartenders and learning from them while I was learning how to sell. And that's how I progressed to become a rum ambassador for Ray Nephew and Appleton. I helped launch those products in Australia and New Zealand. I did my first international trip in 2003 down to New Zealand, where we quickly became one of the top selling rums on the island. It wasn't the top selling rum. The top selling rum was still made by Appleton, but it was called Karuba. But Appleton was really that upsell from Karuba into the more mature drinker. So I was at the forefront of really trying to promote premium rums that you could sip and savor by itself, or you could charge a little bit more for in a cocktail, as such. And while I was doing that, I remember a bartender out in New Zealand. I don't know if it was. See, I remember meeting guys like a guy named Jacob Briers and Naren Young. Naren Young's gone to world class stuff, winning, having the best bar in the world at one stage in New York. Now he's running Sweet Liberty down in Miami, and Jacob Briers is one of the top bigwigs in the Bacardi Corporation. But they were just bartenders back then, and I don't think it was one of those guys. But someone said to me, "So why should we take Appleton rum? What's the difference between Appleton rum and say Bacardi, or Appleton rum and say Havana Club?" And I couldn't tell them. All I could say is, one's from Jamaica, one's from Puerto Rico, one's Cuban. That's all I could say. And I was like, damn, I need to learn more about these other rums before I could be a better brand ambassador for Appleton. And while I was learning all these other rums, I was realizing that there was no one really championing the rum category at that particular time. In fact, no one was. There was no one actually, no category ambassador at that particular time. So that's when I decided, you know what, instead of being a brand ambassador, I want to be a rum ambassador. And when I started telling people what it was, they were like, you're crazy. That's just crazy. It's stupid. And there's no such thing. And who's going to pay you? I'm like, oh, whoever can afford me, whoever wants to listen to me talk about rum. And that's how it started. It started off early 2000s, and it just became a mission. It became my own destiny. It was like, I want to champion and promote the rum category in any way possible, whether it's through sipping and savoring by itself, understand its history, understand where it is today, where it's going in the future, understanding cocktails as well. That rum experience encompasses so many different things and elements connected to rum. So and it just grew and grew. By 2007, I had a little bit of savings. I launched the very first international rum festival, which then went to inspire rum festivals all over the world, the ones in the States, France, Germany. We did one back in Jamaica as well. I've done Mauritius. I've done a rum festival in Hong Kong. So I've helped rum festivals all over the world establish themselves to grow the category of rum. And that all started from me just saying, I want to promote the rum category, and why is no one else doing it? We got whiskey lives and whiskey events. We've got beer events. We've got wine events. Rum is the greatest spirit on the planet. I'm Jamaican. It's in my blood. I had my first sip of rum when I was 4 days old. According to my grandmother or my mum, who was ever telling the stories. More people should know about the culture of rum. Even before we go into the history of rum, of why rum is so important and how it helped forge the Western world, as such, with other products like sugar and tobacco and other things. But rum was an important part of that. So I feel I was destined to do where I am today as an ambassador. I'm still learning about the category, just because there's so much to learn about the rum category globally. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. So that's just a little snapshot of my journey from just being a humble bartender from back in the mid 90s to an ambassador that's traveled to all 7 continents to do masterclasses and talk about rum.
Which, I mean, just first off, hats off to you, Ian. I mean,
cheers. Thank you.
The passion, and I remember watching you at Tiki Oasis do your seminar on rum.
And I first met. Yeah.
I was so hungover doing the judging cocktail. I was at that point, I was just an influencer. I was like, why the fuck am I sitting next to Ian Burrell? Like, I don't belong here. What the fuck is this? But I would say, watching you do your seminar, I have told, I don't know, at least 100 plus people that your command, your presence, your timing and delivery is second to none. Like, you are.
Thank you.
Cheers, take all sorts of information, you make it so damn entertaining. And I'll tell you, you have been a huge inspiration for me to even attempt to just try to follow in your footsteps. So quite literally, hats off to you.
Thank you.
But yeah, and I guess just the biggest question is, since the mid 90s, I mean, rum has evolved quite a bit, just from a consumer standpoint, for pushes for transparency and protecting rum and all of those sorts of things. And so what's kind of stood out to you most as the biggest transitions? I know that's a very broad question, but
yeah, I suppose there's probably a couple. I think the biggest transition, the one what we're enjoying at the moment, what certain companies are enjoying at the moment, is the understanding of the premiumization of rum. Or should I say, the return to the premiumization of rum? Just because back in the days, talking about the 18th century now, and 19th century, where rum was seen as a premium spirit out there, especially the rums from the Caribbean, from the major players, the Jamaicas of the world, the Guyanas of the world, Barbados of the world. Cuba then, after the Industrial Revolution, started making a little bit of noise and showing what they could do. Martinique, of course, doing stuff again after the Industrial Revolution. But rum was sold to certain places as a premium, but then through various different type of political interventions, it started going downhill, as in price-wise. Distilleries started closing down, and then the bigger brands started producing what we call more affordable rums, and that became the benchmark for the rum category. So people just saw rum as cheap products. You mix in the cocktail, and that was it. No one's going to spend their hard-earned money on an expensive bottle of rum to sip and savor like they would a bourbon, like they would a scotch, or like what they would do a cognac as such. So over the last, I would say 15 to 20 years, we've now seen rum influencers, geeks, collectors, people that really appreciate the premiumization of rum. A true 12-year-old, 15-year-old, 21-year-old, 25-year-old, they're sipping and savoring that, and they're talking about it in the same types of conversation as some of the most noble spirits in the world. And it's nice to see that, because again, growing up fairly poor or growing up in countries where rum was just part of the local commodity, you're not drinking expensive rums. In fact, in the Caribbean, all the premium or aged rums was sent abroad. You didn't see them much in the Caribbean as such. So it was in small quantities, but although there was a lot of stock still there in the Caribbean, it wasn't really being used as much as it could be. So I'm loving, even though it's a double-edged sword, I'm loving the fact that people are prepared to pay a couple of $100s for a bottle of rum, and talking about it with their friends. Now, I'm not saying everyone should be spending a couple of $100s on a bottle of rum, because there's some rums that are about $20 that taste absolutely great as well, because they're now being made a lot better than they were back in the days as such. So it's about the affordability of rum, I would say, has increased. That the price connected to the affordability of rum has increased, and I'm loving that, because now people are getting their flowers. Rum blenders are getting known. Joyce Spence, Trudy Ann Branca at Mount Gay, as well. People are now looking to these rum blenders as superstars, as such, just because they're now knowing about these rums. So I'm loving that, because when I first started off with rum, it was just a case of white, gold, and dark on the back of the shelves, and you'd use that in like a Mai Tai, which was nothing to do with the 1944's Mai Tai, because it had
pineapple,
like
Whaler's dark
pineapple, dark rum, gold rum, and some amaretto inside there. for your almond. So that's what I've probably seen in the last at least the last 20 years, and welcome that growth. People are now understanding rum, and the fact that they're now starting to, when I say they are now starting, it's only a small minority of the rum drinkers, but they're now starting to understand geography, where a rum is made and why a particular rum is different from another rum, just because of where it's made.
And how cool is it? I mean, I can't even imagine, just if you went back to the mid 90s when it was, this is from Jamaica, this is from Cuba, this is from Puerto Rico. And now to have people, in large part to the work that you've done, be able to say, oh no, this is from Hampton Estate, this came from a muck pit, which is a hole in the ground, or this is from a double pot retort pot still at the Worthy Park Estate, single estate distiller. That's so exciting, man. And
it's the same type of it's the same level of geekiness that you'll get from, say, Scotch whiskey drinkers, single malt Scotch whiskey drinkers that travel into distilleries, and they're trying to understand the nuances between one distillery or two distilleries in one region, whether it be Highlands, Lowlands, Campbelltown, Speyside, Isla. They're now talking about rums in that same type of conversation, although rum is still a product that's made worldwide. It has its different nuances and regulations. But now some people, not all, but some people now are starting to appreciate and understand that. When I said it's a double-edged sword, that, remember, if you also have a product or products that are successful, you'll also have the imitators that want to try to make a quick buck by imitating these products, just so they can make quick money. So again, now we're also seeing a rise in some people might say fake rums as well, being officially sold as premium.
Yeah, I guess it's just like you said, a double-edged sword. It's going to come with it no matter what. You know, when you're out educating, I mean, I think you mentioned your acting background and your training, and you've just really gone to that. Like Bryan was saying, it's so captivating just to watch you. We talked a little bit about rum as it had become sort of the cheap party spirit, right? It has the celebratory, the cartoonish kind of thing with the pirates and all of that.
Yeah.
So going from that to like the actual history of rum, which it has a darker side, right? Where with its the slave trade. How have you communicated that part of it with the audiences, and how receptive are they to even hearing about it, about the history of it?
Well, again, the way we told the story back in, say, the 90s and the early 2000s is different how we tell the story now in the 2020s. I think just going back to the last question, one of the other things connected with rum that we could definitely say that is pleasurable to see and welcoming is maturity, not only in the rum but in the clientele. that are drinking rum. They have matured. So we can have open conversations about enslaved Africans being the backbone of the rum industry in the Caribbean without having to cower or shy away or feel embarrassed about it. And I don't feel anyone should feel embarrassed, especially today, about that past. It's about what we do now and what we do in the future, because we're not living in the past, we're living today as such. So it's about how that is seen and how it's used to promote the positives in rum. I always say nobody's born with knowledge, everyone is ignorant. But once you get that knowledge, it's what you do with that knowledge. Do you say, oh, you know what, I'm going to continue doing this. I'm going to continue keeping my brand name as this, even though it might be offensive to someone else. No, you know what, I'm going to change because I realized I made a mistake back then, or we made a mistake back then. I didn't have the knowledge. Now I do. So I'm going to change my brand or change the way I promote my product. So we can talk about what's called the backbone or the foundation of the rum industry in a candid way, where we talk about the slave trade of trade in human flesh coming from Africa with rum products and sugar products and tobacco to an extent going to the Americas, and then Americans then sending over to Europe, and then Europe then sending products over to Africa, and it forming that circle which made millions of people millionaires, multi-millionaires, that were either absentee, what's called landowners. They had the banks, they had the mortgages, they were the crown as well. They made loads of money, and rum wasn't the only thing that made that money, but it was part of that. So to not talk about that is not really talking about the history of what rum is. That is as important as rum has to be made from sugarcane, not sugar beet or maple syrup. I know there's a few brands in the States that tried to launch their own rums from, or sorghum. I saw one product from Tennessee coming out there, putting rum on the label from sorghum. Had to make some noise to the TTB with that. But yeah, so it's a case of you have to talk about what's called the plantation system and slavery when we talk about rum, because that is the foundation of the product. But it doesn't stop a brand from being tasty, as good as it is, and we shouldn't want to shy away from that, because that's whitewashing history, and we don't want to do that. We want to talk about history and then talk about how we can learn from that to be better. So yeah, so when we do talk about rum in my book, again, I talk about that quite openly as such, and I've done it in a way where people say, well, it makes perfect sense, Ian, and quite happy you said it. And it's a little bit easier for me, I suppose, to say it with just because of the fact that my grandparents or grandparents were enslaved and made rum at the same time. So I'm talking about from
a history. I mean, it's really, you're really close, you know?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah. So, but at the end of the day, we're all about now how we can focus on all of our energies on the todays and on the future, instead of what's called focusing our energies on the negative of the past, because that's what we really want to do. So again, it's about learning the past and use that for the future.
Yeah, and I mean, Ian, you said it perfectly, and it's a perfect point on me trying to talk about it. I mean, you can see me from space. I'm so white. So I usually just do I usually do a 1 or 2 sentence of, hey, like, this is one of the greatest atrocities in human history, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Not blah, 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 but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm so curious because anytime I've posted about Worthy Park, I've posted about Appleton, Mount Gay, and always on my social media, there's at least one person that says something of, well, I'm glad you're promoting slavery. And it's like, I didn't know how to respond to that for the longest time.
Yeah.
And even I'm always just kind of like, so the one thing though that I've talked to Shannon Musta for quite a lot about this, but it seems that rum is really the only spirit. And again, I'm not paying that close attention to others, but it doesn't seem like people are have the same stigma for bourbon or for any other alcoholic spirit that was produced 100%. By slavery for a long time. So it's one of those two, to where is there a special reason why there's that stigma that remains with rum where it's not the case with whiskey or any other category?
I think it's because the Caribbean itself was the foundation of Europe, as such, a lot of Europe's wealth. When the English and the French and the Spanish and the Portuguese to Danish and Dutch to a small amount as well. When they wanted to have a big fight, they didn't do it in Europe. They came over to the Caribbean to do it in all the different islands and all the territories inside there. So there's a lot more people talking about the rum or the sugar cane industry than there are the American whiskey industry. Yes, there's only a few brands that are now. Uncle Nearest is one of the ones that started talking about the history of American whiskey and how enslaved Africans were part of that. Well, we've always been talking about it with rum, and we've always had that connection with rum because of especially countries like Jamaica, Barbados. It's part of their DNA. They are quite openly talk about it. Even on Appleton's old labels, when I started working at Appleton, they used to have a little boy pulling a donkey and cart with sugarcane on there. Now, that would have been an enslaved African pulling that. They then took it off the label inside it just because they were trying to shy away from that. And I was like, well, why are we trying to forget about history? No one's going to complain about that. As such, probably no one even noticed until you actually took it off the actual label. So it's been a part of the conversation, especially here in Europe and other parts of the world, when we talk about Caribbean rums. And because there are so many different islands that have a similar story in that sense. You have a plantation, you import slaves, you then get them to cultivate your sugar, you make money from sugar, and then you make money from your molasses, and then you realize from that molasses, you can now make rum. You can make money from that rum. Then you say, wow, we're making money from sugar and molasses and rum. And then your rum started becoming even more popular than the sugar. So you now need to plant more sugar inside there. And that's the arduous job. And the indentured slaves that they have there were dying off because they were all from Ireland. And so they were dying off. So then you start importing African slaves because so it is part of rum. So anytime we talk about rum, it will come up more so than
that's fair.
American whiskey as such. Now, I'm not an expert in American whiskey, but again, I'd love to have a historian talk someone writing their book about American whiskey, a little bit more about where whiskey came from. The very first time I actually made a connection with American whiskey and enslaved Africans or African Americans as such. I'm translating it for you guys because we don't have African Americans here in the UK. Was the old Jack Daniels poster where I saw a picture of Jack Daniels. I was on the subway, saw a picture of Jack Daniels, and next to him or close to him was, now I know was Uncle Nearest's son as such. And I was like, oh, there's a black dude inside the distillery making whiskey. Bam, okay, that's interesting. And that then provoked thoughts. And then it was, coincidentally, it was like about maybe a year and a half later, I got to meet Fawn Weaver in London, and she was launching Uncle Nearest as such. So I've been in the drinks industry for many years, and that was the first time that I'd really thought about where and who was making bourbon or Tennessee whiskey back in the 1800s as such, or even prior to then. With rum, that conversation has always been there.
100%. And Ian, you mentioned that it's about looking forward. I think the one last thing I'd love to get your thoughts on from a historical, cultural perspective is how did rum go from, very, very dark origins and all the atrocities happening with the slave trade and all of that? How has it become so celebrated with every Caribbean nation, Trinis, Guyanese, Barbadians, Jamaicans, etc.? It is celebrated, and it is not only celebrated, it's part of the culture. I mean, I don't have to tell you, you're Jamaican. So
that's the reason why you just hit the nail on the head. It's culture. Yeah. Rum is more than spirit. It's actually a way of life in the Caribbean. And you go to every island, whether they make rum, whether they import rum and bottle it there and that type of thing, it is part of their culture, part of their DNA. So when it's part of your culture, you celebrate it. It is about celebration. I laughingly said I had my first sip of rum when I was 4 days old. It probably would have been around that with mother's milk. As such, literally. As such, we use rum as part of ceremonies. So you have rum at weddings, you pour rum into your house when you move into a new house to get rid of the ghosts or the duppies, as we call them. The duppy share, the angel share in Jamaica. So yeah, we get rid of the duppies by pouring rum on the floor inside it to get rid of that. Or you're pouring rum for the spirits and the ghosts that are not here, or your past friends. So again, it's part of tradition. You build a new house, you pour a bit of rum on the floor and the foundations as such, or on the doorsteps as you come in there, just just to keep those ghosts or those duppies out. Funerals, we had the 9 nights as well, where we're drinking loads of rum, and the coffin's normally there inside the house, and you're at the house drinking rum for 9 nights before you bury a loved one. Everyone's drinking rum, everyone's enjoying themselves. Well, the only person that's not enjoying themselves is a person that was owed money by the person who passed away. Because nothing worse than someone dying and they owe you money.
Where's my money?
Yeah, exactly. But they're still enjoying the free rum inside there. So it's part of the culture. And that's the reason why it's become celebrated. And of course, it was also a commodity that was sent abroad. So certain countries, it was part of their culture as well. The Royal Navy, although they were drinking beer initially and that type of thing, when beer ran out and it already started getting sour, a substitution of rum was put into place as such. So again, when the Royal Navy then started getting that taste for rum, they were then taking it around the world. And as well as taking the English language around the world, they were also dropping off rum at the same time. So it became that mythical type of spirit. It was strong, it was pungent. Some of the best rums in the world, most of them would have come from Jamaica at a particular time. But we're talking about the 19th century, late 18th, early 19th century, would have been Jamaica. It would have been sent to the motherland, which was the UK or England as such. Some would have gone to the Americas, but they were making their own rum now, doing their own thing as such. Maybe get a little bit from Barbados and Guyana, of course, but a lot of molasses coming in from Guyana to make, say, New England rums. But yeah, it became celebrated just because of the fact that it was different from some of the other spirits out there. It was a good substitute for other spirits as well. As we know, through the wars, First World War, Second World War, navies, armies were drinking rum. Actually, in the Second World War, Jamaican rum production started going up because it was a great substitute for Scotch whiskey, which was in short supply. So again, it became celebrated. It became part of people's culture, whether you're from the Caribbean or whether you're from Europe. And that's the reason why it has its ups and downs, The unfortunate thing for the rum category, it's predominantly made, especially in the Caribbean, it's predominantly made in countries that don't have great trade agreements with the wealthier nations. And that's the only reason why we're not seeing rum at that same level as some of the others. Trade. And it's quite topical today at the moment, trade and tariffs.
I'm telling you, like you said, trade, and I'm just like, as the brand ambassador for El Dorado, I'm thinking 38% tariff against Guyana.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's wild
compared to rums coming out of Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands, cover over tax and
my God.
Unfair competition. But again, that's that they've had to put up with that since when the cover over tax came in just before Prohibition. No, I think it was after
like early 30s. I think.
Early 30s after Prohibition, because I know it was a reward for Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico got a reward for being part of the Union just before they got closed down. It's celebrated around the world and now I'm seeing a great increase of rums from all different parts of the world. People now get into the rum game. But yeah, if rum had fair trade, rum producing countries had fair trade, you'd see a lot more rums out there and even better quality rums to be more accessible.
Yeah. And
Equiano. Tell us about that, because that's
that the Almenara. Wow.
It is Almenara. I have all 3 SKUs, Ian. All 3.
Oh, damn. I'll have to send you some samples of the new ones we're creating.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. So there's more coming. So tell us the history of that.
That's
what we can see coming forward.
Oh, yeah. We got more to come on that, because I want to continue the story of Equiano, using different blends from different parts of the African continent, not only with Barbados, but other parts of the Caribbean, and also testing out Mr. Seal, who makes the rum. Test him out, see how good he is, because I still think it's a fluke. That guy's rums can't be as good and consistent as they are. It's a fluke. I think it's a fluke.
Oh, I tell you, Ian. Yeah. So here in Total Wine, you can get the Allen Arthur's Special Barbados rum for $12.99. And I looked at the label so many times. I walked by it and I was like, that looks so terrible. Why would I buy that? So I happened to just pick it up. I saw Foursquare and I went, all right, son of a bitch, I'm in. And it's just one of the best tasting things ever.
And for that price point, I mean, Total Wines. I mean, I won't tell you the reason why Total Wines have got a great deal, but they got a great deal
absolutely
for their rums and their doilies as well.
Oh my God, like you're speaking my language. I remember the first time I had, because the first thing I ever had neat was Diplomatico Reserve. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. And then I had Dorley's EXO and was like, my eyes popped open. And then there's Chairman's and all of those sorts of lovely things. Taking a quick step back though, because I would assume or hope that all of our listeners have heard about Equiano, your brand. And so now you can add to your list. Now you're obviously a published author, Global Rum Ambassador, and now you are a brand owner of Equiano. And it's very pertinent to our conversations and all of that. So how did this come? How did this come to be? Would love to hear the story and all of it.
Well, I've been involved in helping to create several rum brands that are on the market over the last 20 years. And it was always as a hired gun, a consultant as such. And I've always wanted to create my own brand or be involved in creating the brand, but never had the right opportunity. So the opportunity came around about 2019, where I was approached by some people that said, listen, we're looking to create they had this idea to create a brand, and I was like, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. But I was like, well, if you think about doing rums that will tell a story, because people love a story, people love marketing, and that's important. You could have the best products in the world, but if it's not marketed and told to the right people, no one's going to know about it. If you wanted to create a brand with a story, why not look to have something that has meaning, tells a story of rum, tells a story about celebration as well. And they loved the idea. And that's when we started coming up with the ideas of doing a rum that was a blend of not only not only Caribbean, but also the African continent, just because of the fact that, of course, we spoke about enslaved Africans were taken to places like Barbados. They were still Africans, although they were living in Barbados as such, and they were making the rums out there. But they also had the knowledge of making alcohol from fermentation and things like that, making palm wines in the West Coast. So naturally, if you're fermenting molasses and sugarcane, you've got that little bit of expertise there as well. So that connection between Africa and the Caribbean was strong, but it was never told with a rum. So I said, let's make a African Caribbean blend. Now, the African continent, 54 different countries on the continent. Now, not many are making what I like to see as world-class rums. There's a lot of cane spirit there, a lot of cane spirit. Some of them with local names that are not rum. They're actually local spirits like Apateshi from Ghana. As such, it is made from either palm wine or sugarcane, but they don't call it rum. So they've been making that for many, many years. But then you can go down to South Africa, or you go down to Rwanda, or you go to Kenya, and they're all making cane spirit, and they're also making rums. But again, it's for local markets. But then when you look at countries like Mauritius or the Seychelles, because of their links to places like France and Europe, they've had that like advantage of know-how of using French oak, making rum like the cognac way or the brandy way as such. So they've been making rum for quite a few years. Internationally, they've been making local rums, but they've also been making rums for the international market. And drinking some of the rums, especially from Mauritius, I'm like, wow, these are amazing. So that was the first country I thought of blending rums from Mauritius, another exotic African country, and then blending that with rums from the Caribbean. Now, I'm a Jamaican, and we make the best rum in the world.
Yep, I will die on that hill.
According to Jamaicans.
But I mean, hey, like you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
That's it. Yeah, but the only thing about Jamaica rum for me is, especially when you talk about the big, heavy, funky rums, they remind me sometimes like, or a scene sometimes by drinkers like the Isla whiskeys of the spirit world, of the rum world. So an acquired taste as such. When if you look at the most popular rums in the world, they're lightly bodied. Of course, by volume, they're going to be multi-column still, coming from, say, places like Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic and Cuba and Nicaragua and places like that. But I didn't want to make a rum as light as that. And of course, there aren't too many English-speaking Caribbean islands that are making rums like that as such. So I wanted something a bit more complex and complexity. So, of course, I had to, as a Jamaican, it was hard to do. I had to reach out to Barbados, our rivals, only in cricket, not rum. But our rivals, reached out to Barbados and speak to Richard Seal and said to Richard, listen, this is the idea I want to do. I want to do a blend of rums from, say, Mauritius and Barbados. We want to be an African Caribbean rum. We want to tell the story of rum. Also, from a philanthropic, what's called mindset, we want to be able to donate money from any potential sales or profits to also, again, empower several distilleries in the Caribbean. If we can go, sorry, not Caribbean, in the African continent, if we can go and try and raise the level of rum production in those countries. And I was keeping my fingers crossed that Richard would say, give me a couple days to think about it. Because within literally 5 minutes, he said, all right, let's do it. I was like, wow, okay, that was easy. That was easy. And then it was a case of getting the right blends. As I said, Barbados rum was, as you said, doing what's called the Arthur Allens and the Dawleys. Very easy drinking, but still complex.
Yep.
Appleton is absolutely amazing. It's a much more lighter style of Jamaica rum compared to, say, a Hamden, which again would be like the Lafroigs of the rum world or the Arbegs of the rum world. But again, Jamaica rum will come into an Equiano blend in the future. That's in the future. But for now, we wanted to create something that was approachable. And that's the reason why I blended some rums from what's called Appleton, sorry, not Appleton, from Dawley's, some rums from Barbados, and mixed those with Mauritian rums. I did that, and I gave Richard Seal the sample, and he looked at it and he tasted it, nosed it, and he says, "Don't give up your daytime job, but I know what you want." Yes. In essence, that's what he was basically saying. And, yeah, so he made up a blend, and I was like, yeah, I won't give up my daytime job because this is not bad. Then we had a fight. We had a little fight, and that wasn't a proper fight. It was a little tiny thing about ABV. I said, listen, I split my rum drinkers into 3 different categories, broad categories. There are levels in particular. Or think of a Venn diagram. So in the first Venn diagram, you've got what's called the 1% of rum drinkers, which are ultra geeks. They can tell you the dress size of the master blender and distiller. They can tell you about the different funk levels. They can tell you about the different levels of Jamaica rum, heavy continental, light continental, plumbers, Wedderburns. They can tell you about different marks. They can even tell you probably what's called the names of the stills at St. Lucia Distillery out there, and why there's a Jamaican distiller there making the best rum in St. Lucia because he's Jamaican. They'll tell you all of that. They'll tell you all that because that's where part of the rum category is going. But that's just the 1%. Then you have the 9% who are influencers. Now, as you started off at the conversation saying you felt uncomfortable by saying the word influencer, just because of the fact it's overused. It's for me the same way as bartenders that are called mixologists.
Oh, God, don't get me
started. Because it's overused. But here's the thing. I always say, if someone says to me, "Oh, you're a mixologist," I'm like, well, if you want to call me that, not a problem. Especially if it's someone in the media wants to call you a mixologist, because what they're doing is giving your profession credence. They're calling you a mixologist because for years, bartenders have just seen the people behind the bar just pulling a pint, pouring a shot, doing it, opening the beer, and then say, "Give me some tips." At the end of the day, as opposed to someone who's crafting a cocktail, crafting flavors and textures, and putting in the hours to do the research and traveling to all the shows out there to do knowledge, understanding categories like understanding rum, so you can make better rum cocktails. Yeah, that should have its flowers. So if someone wants to call me a mixologist because they're putting me and raising my level there, then why not? I'm not going to call myself a mixologist. I'll call myself a bartender, a rum lover. But yeah, if someone who wants to maybe pay me money to do a job is going to call me a mixologist, then I'm going to take it as such. And that's the reason why there are certain words like influencer. If someone calls you a rum influencer, yeah, because you're going to influence other people to drink rum. Not saying you're going to stand there naked with a bottle in front of you and pose and that type of stuff, do a little wiggle and things like this, and hopefully on TikTok you get 1 million views, because that can also influence in another way as well. But an influencer, rum influencers are people that drink great rums. They understand the category a little bit more than most. They will post, they will talk, they will do podcasts, they will do seminars and presentations. They will hold tastings as well. Or they're just someone who collects great rums. They got a professional job somewhere, but they collect great rums and they're talking about it to their clients, their friends, and that type of thing. They're influencing other people about how great the rum category is as such. Are they the geeky level? Maybe not yet, because they haven't invested as much time, but they potentially could be as such. And then you have the 90%, that's 9%. And then you have the 90% who don't give a shit as long as it tastes good. And they think Spice rum is rum and Malibu is rum, according to them. As such, I would say that. But
well, everybody's thinking it. Everybody's thinking it, Ian.
But they are the 90% of people that consume products that is sold or marketed as rum, as such. Now, when you create a brand, do you want to play in at 90%? Do you want to play in at 9%? Or do you want to play in at 1%? When I created Equiano, I said, I want to play in at 9%. I want the 1% to appreciate it, but I want to play in that 9% because that 90% is either going to say, "Oh, Equiano is too expensive. I don't get it. Why would you blend a rum aged in cognac cask and a rum blended in ex bourbon cask? Why not just get some bourbon and some brandy or some cognac, mix it together, and call it Equiano?" No, they might say that. So, or they say, or they'll say the other thing. "Oh, it's a bit dry. It's not sweet." Yeah, you're right, because there's no sugar added to it, because that's how we wanted to make it. We want to make our rum as pure as possible, so there's no sugar added to it. But yeah, the product you drink, you may like it, not a problem. Legally, it probably wouldn't be called rum in Europe because it's got 25 grams of sugar or over 20 grams of sugar inside there. But yeah, if you enjoy it, not a problem, but know what you're drinking. But it's not rum. So that's that 90% in there. So Equiano was created for that 9%. Those people that will influence other people about what they possibly could be drinking, not should be drinking, but could be drinking if they really want to indulge themselves into the rum category. So that's what I wanted to do. And that's why I said to Richard, I want it to be 43%. Richard wanted it to be 50%. To go into the 1% of consumers. I said, no, I want a rum for the many, not for the few. And he then rounded it down to 43, and that's where we lay 86 proof, 43%. But the Ominara, as you have, is 52. And that's because of the story. That's the story. Equiano was 52 years old when he died.
Oh, no kidding.
The youngest rum in the blend is 11 because he was 11 years old when he was kidnapped from West Africa to Barbados. Ominarum in West Africa, in one of the West African languages, Yoruba means freedom. So it was a freedom to express ourselves and blend different types of rums. And the coordinates on the bottle, I'm not going to tell you where they go to. You have to do your work and do that. But there are different coordinates on each of the bottles, and they point to different places in the world on the actual bottle. So it is a journey of discovery, like we put on the original Equiano. We don't want to force feed stories or information to people, but if anyone wants to learn or understand why we called it this, why the rum is this way, then we're quite happy to share that. And that's what Equiano is about. It's about celebration. Yes, Equiano himself was an abolitionist. He was an author, an entrepreneur, an inspiration to a lot of people. He bought his own freedom. By the time he was 20, he was enslaved at 11, but bought his own freedom by selling rum and spices in the Caribbean and back in the UK. So by the time he was 20, and with that freedom, went back to the UK, became a hairdresser, also did other things, but yeah, became an abolitionist, worked with people like other Sons of Africa and Wilberforce to create the Transatlantic Slave Act, or help create the Transatlantic Slave Act of 1806, which abolished the people trafficking of Africans from the African continent to the colonies. So very, very important person. There are plaques in the UK that say his name. His book is downloaded for free online, and he's inspired lots of different storytelling as well. So we just want to celebrate that story, and that's why we called it Equiano. And the fact it's got Ian in the name, but that's another story.
See, it's a triple check. Proof, times, dates, story. The liquid is delicious. If no one has tried it, the light and the dark rums are widely available. Total Wine, Ominira is a little bit harder to find.
A little bit harder. I think you have one of the few bottles in the States, because we've only done 3,000 bottles. There was only 3,000, and I know that places like Hungary, we only gave them 150 bottles, and they sold it out in I think in 2 weeks. So they want more. So we're like, all right, sell some more of the other ones, and we'll send you more of the Ominira. So and it's 160, 170 euros, I think, in Europe for the Ominira.
Yeah, the one place for anybody listening in the US you can get this. I got mine from Passion Spirits. So passionspirits.com.
Yeah.
Head over there and get this bottle because it's fan freaking tastic. No, but that's so cool, Ian. And is there stress? Well, obviously that's a stupid question, but what stress do you have? Is it like we're not hitting our sales numbers? Because that's where I'm worried about, because I did a blend with Raising Glasses with Shannon. It's a global rum blend.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Great.
But fortunately I don't have any physical sales targets. And if we don't hit our sales numbers, all that's to poor John and Lori, but I can only imagine that that's also something of gotta hit our numbers.
It's always a challenge when you have a new company, new brand.
Sure.
It's nice to have all the passion and have a great product and that type of thing, but at the end of the day, you've got to sell. You got to sell and make money for the company. You got to pay wages if you're hiring people, or you're going to pay your distributors if they need marketing budget. Well, so it is the case of, if you're looking to make loads of money owning a brand, forget it. I didn't do Equiano for the money. I did the Equiano for the love and the passion of making rum. Anything else is a bonus. Now, you don't want to lose money. You don't want to lose loads of money and things like that. So you want to get investors that also believe in you as well. We've been very fortunate to have really great investors that invested in Equiano. But yeah, it is. You have your highs and you have your lows. You have your great days. You have your days where you just want to pull the hair out and scream and shout because things are not going the right way. Like when things like, for example, you put an order for rum coming from Mauritius and it goes on a boat and it's sailing because it has to sail, sailing all the way from the African continent to the Caribbean. And all of a sudden, someone decides to block a super tanker in the Suez Canal. And nothing can get through. And you're like, we were expecting that rum to be in Barbados at this particular time, and now we're stuck with hundreds of thousands of other boats stuck near Egypt because someone's blocked a super tanker. So things like that you don't anticipate. And also the other thing as well is being a Caribbean person, we're very laid back and chilled. Now I'm working with Caribbeans and I'm working with companies in the African continent who are also laid back and chilled. They'll get things done. We're laid back and chill. We're laid back. And that can be frustrating with partners that don't understand that because they're not from the Caribbean. They're like, why don't we get it like we expected? No, don't worry about it. Soon come, man. Soon come. It will come. It'll be there. We have to factor that into any figures, any forecasts. Factor in the soon come element.
How to manage that. That's something I've learned living in Fiji and being married to a Fijian.
There you go. Well, you know.
Yeah.
Life is like a little more chilled and laid back now.
It is island life everywhere, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And you probably come in and see foreigners come in and want to get something done now, and it's like, hey, you got to take a step back.
Yeah. Less stress. So a lot of people say to me, Ian, man, you don't look like you've aged or over the years and that time. I'm like, yeah, because I'm less stressed now. Plus, I did a deal with the devil, but also I'm less stressed.
Crossroads at midnight
as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you're gonna have to give Constantine some advice, Ian, because Constantine the distillery is finally operational, right? Constantine, you're making your rum and such. Because Constantine's making the big leap and creating some competition for what is it, South Pacific Distillers? That's the name of the distillery.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. I can't wait to fly there because I've never been to Fiji, one of the few countries I haven't been to, but it's on the list. On the list
Gotta
to go
get you down here, man. Yeah,
man, that sounds good. Yeah.
We were doing a little bit of progress. I mean, like I said, it's slow progress anywhere in the islands, but we're moving forward. We've been sharing space with another guy who's making coconut vodka. Had a little arrangement there. We've got our lease on our own space now.
Vodka, your favorite, Ian.
Yeah. Well, if I have to be forced to drink vodka, at least it's flavored. At least there's some flavor to it. It's coconut.
Yes. Coconut, and I think it's 27%, right? So it's it's sweet and coconut and all that stuff. It's sort of the Malibu of vodka, I guess you could say.
No, you don't take some Malibu vodka. Yeah, I'm sure you're a lot better. I'm sure it's a lot better than
Actually, it really is. It's not my product. My buddy makes it, but it's way better than Malibu. I keep telling him, like, you need to take this global, man. It's
man.
Probably a market for it. But so we're doing that. And we've got another project we had talked about this, Ian, on email a long time ago, doing a Fiji rum festival down here.
Yes, so that's right. Yeah, you did.
That is in the works. Fiji Rum and Tiki Festival.
Nice.
Something the first time I'm mentioning this, I think, is the real driving force behind a lot of this is my wife. And talked about slavery and its role in rum. In the Pacific, it was a bit different. You had what's called blackbirding. So they would take islanders from different places, and that's how my wife ended up in Fiji with blood from Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, what's now Kiribati, the Gilberts, and Scotland. So
amazing.
The history of sort of blackbirding is in the villages that her family's come from. So she's really involved in this Fiji Rum and Tiki Festival. And to communicate that around, I know Tiki sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap as well, because it sort of is the cartoon version of the South Pacific culture. So she's really interested in bringing the real stories out, right, and bringing people to hear that. So I'll send you more follow up on that, and we can talk more about that, later. But it's just something that's happening here, and you got to get out, man. We got to get down here.
Have to. So, question. So, in regards to rum consumption in Fiji, naturally, a lot of molasses has been made there, sent to Australia. There's a few brands that have come out of there as well. Is there like a local way to, or a local name, or connected to the culture of drinking sugarcane distillates in Fiji? Even products that they don't even call rum, but is made exactly the same way or very similar to rum.
No, it's a good question, and we don't quite have the rum culture like you have in the Caribbean. Kava is the big drink here in terms of culture. So, sit around the bowl of kava. So kava is like it's a root of a plant that's related to black pepper, ground up, mixed in water, and that is like the drink. Rum has a history with the Australians that came in with the colonial sugar refinery, right? It was made off and on. There's some old distilleries that kind of came and went. It wasn't really until 1980 when South Pacific Distillery was established, where you had a actual producer like what we would think of that's producing, branded rum. So that's the local drink. There's one called Bounty, which is
I know Bounty.
Here. Yeah. So that's kind of
they have one in St. Lucia as well.
Yeah, right. And different. I mean, completely different. And it's sort of an odd name here to use Bounty, because Bounty, the ship never actually came to Fiji. It just sailed past. Yeah. So, but Bounty is sort of the local spirit that's drank here, but it doesn't really have a lot of the culture that you have in Jamaica. It's not used to, it's not poured on the foundations of the homes and things like that.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay. That's brilliant.
And it's owned by Coca-Cola out of CCEP out of Belgium. And it's the only distillery in the massive soda empire. And so it hasn't quite been handled as good as it could be, I think, because it just is sort of an afterthought for Coca-Cola.
Nice.
I mean, it is just so random, right? If you take a step back and think about, the boardroom meeting of whoever pitched this of, what we need, guys? Yes, we have a soda empire, but what we need? We need a distillery in the portfolio. Yeah. And I can just imagine like that the head honcho just sitting there going, I like it. Buy it. Yeah. Just like, I'm sure it's much more nuanced than that, but it just seems so absolutely random.
It came with the brewery, which I think was what they were really after.
Oh.
And it came with the brewery in Samoa, the distillery here, the brewery in Suva. Yeah, and it was like I think it was more of you've got to take the distillery anyway, if you want the brewery. So
yeah. Wow. Absolutely amazing. That was fascinating. But yeah, as I said, I can't wait to add Fiji to one of the many countries I've been to, just to drink rum there and see how rum is perceived out there, whether it be local products or international products. Of course, I say my connection to Fiji has always been through the raw material going into making rums in Australia when they couldn't get enough from, say, Queensland as well, or local rum companies there were monopolizing some of the molasses coming into Australia as such, or even liquid coming. I shouldn't be saying that, but some liquid come into Australia from Fiji as well.
Yeah, and Jamaica. So we do send molasses to Jamaica. So I think the best Jamaican rum is made with Fijian molasses.
Oh my God. So Constantine used that line. We had Martha, Zan, and Christelle on. Talking about Jamaican rum, and Constantine made that joke, and all of them it didn't apply to Zan because Worthy Park single estate, but
Worthy Park single estate as well.
And Martha was like, no.
At that time, I had just been over to the wharf there. They had a ship. There's a molasses ship. It takes like 2 months to fill up the ship with molasses, and that ship was going to Jamaica.
Wow. Maybe one of them didn't really give it a full story. The other thing as well, you also have the spirit pool out there. They may have purchased it and then distributed it around, but Whitby Park would have been focused on just using their own stuff. Hamden, depends on what they were looking to create, but of course, those they create their own rum from their own sugar cane, their own molasses, their own vinegars, and that type of stuff. But National Rums of Jamaica make an incredible amount of volume, especially in their column stills. So. Anyway, that's another story. But if you said it was on the way to Jamaica, someone bought it, someone used it, and it wasn't for the roads.
Absolutely not. So, I mean, Ian, I have so many questions for you. So I guess first one is with all of your your travels, traveling around the world. Are there any stories or any situations where you found yourself, and with distillers or blenders, we ask them about distillery accidents, but I'm sure that you probably have at least a couple fun stories of just traveling and like, how the hell am I in this situation or whatever. I'm so curious.
Wow. Trying to think if I can talk about the legal ones. Uh, crazy stories, crazy stories, crazy stories.
Or even just like cool experiences of
Yeah,
like,
I suppose the coolest experience has to be literally coolest experience was taking rum down to Antarctica. Been there twice now. Was there 2 years ago, and I was there first in 2013. 2013, what I wanted to do was go to all 7 continents in 7 months, and I had a mobile tiki bar where I took to all 7 continents and did little cocktails, did tastings and that type of stuff. And it traveled me. It was like a little flat pack. It opened up. It was like a 1 meter wide and about 2 meters high. It was brilliant, and it actually made all 7 continents, but it got lost coming out of South America.
oh
I was coming
no.
out of Venezuela, working with Diplomatico, doing some stuff out there, and for some reason the customs decided to keep my what's called rum shack, so it never made it back to in Europe. But I got it out to Australia, got it out to Mauritius. Europe was easy. North America again was easy, and then South America was down to Venezuela. So yeah, and Asia, I took it to the Hong Kong Rum Fest when we launched the Hong Kong Rum Fest a few years ago. So yeah, so we did all 7 continents. So that was great fun. But yeah, I just doing an old fashioned with an ice cube that was probably thousands of years old. Could we just picked up an ice cube from the sea in Antarctica?
Oh,
And it
no
just
kidding.
clear. It was just so crystal clear, and you could lick it, and it was like just couldn't taste anything. It's like just pure, and just chipping away on that and making an old fashioned with that was just absolutely just amazing. But I suppose the funniest experience on that same trip, that same first trip, I think I posted it online. I wanted to make because I brought a few bottles of Pusser's rum because there's a whole sailing connection and things like that. And our Pusser's, is made and blended and bottled in Guyana. So I brought some Pusser's rum because to get onto the ship to get to Antarctica, we sailed from Argentina through the Drake's Passage. And the Drake's Passage is between Argentina and Antarctica, is where three oceans meet, and the sea is rough. Do not do it if you have a weak stomach and you get seasick. Don't do it. But I did it because I was like, had a few rums and that settled my stomach. But I said, what I love to do? I love to make a Drake El Drake, the precursor to the mojito, where it's fresh mint, lime, sugar, water, and rum or aguardiente, to make that across the Drake's Passage. Perfect. So I was on top of the ship. I got this guy to film it for me. The ship was going like this, up and down, up and down. It was about -6, -7, and the wind chill factor made it even colder. And I'm trying to make this drink on the ship, and the wind was blowing so hard. I had the cup in my left hand, the shaker in my left hand. It was a penguin. It looked like a penguin. I had a penguin shaker in my left hand. I had a bottle of Pussers in my right hand, and I had it about a meter away from the shaker. And I poured it, and the wind blew it into the cup. It was like I poured it out at an angle, a 45-degree angle, straight into the shaker. I was like, wow, this is crazy. Most of it went on the floor, but some of it went into the shaker. Then I got some lime. I was going to squeeze the limes, but it was so cold. I just put it inside the shaker and pressed it against the side of the shaker and threw it in there. I had some sugar in a plastic bottle just because I knew the wind was going to blow it off the spoon. So I shook some of the sugar inside there. And because it was so cold and because it was so windy, my mint blew away. I couldn't put no mint in there. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make a grog instead. Which is appropriate. Well, it's appropriate because so I've gone from a drake to a grog. Same ingredients, but I got a rum, lime, and sugar inside there. No ice because it was too cold. I put the top on. I shook it up. Poured it inside what's called my metal Pusser's cup and had a sip of that, and it was delicious. But my fingers were frozen, and I went downstairs to the cabin and burnt my hands on the radiator trying to warm them up. So I was like, damn, you just nearly sacrificed all 10 of your fingers for the love of rum.
I
And
hope
for
you
a
have those
bloody,
hands insured, Ian.
yeah, and for a bloody Facebook pitch YouTube video. But
Yeah.
yeah, you can see online. You can't hear anything because I had a microphone on there. It was too windy, but I think I put some captions on there. But just reminding me of that. That was wow, about 12 years ago.
Oh man. If you ever decide to re-edit it, my mind just goes to like the silent films with, just like
Yes,
piano
it was like
ragtime
that.
playing.
Yeah, it was like that. I'll send you the
Oh,
link. It's
oh my
funny.
God. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Please.
it is funny. It was really crazy, but yeah, it was. And so, and the boat literally was going up and down, up and down. It was crazy. So you couldn't fathom that. But we were moving all over the place. Good thing the cameraman was quite steady-ish. But yeah, it was mad. But it was something that had to be done. A journalist did say to me back then, "How can you be the global ambassador for rum if you haven't drunk and talks about rum and around the whole world?" And they said it as a joke. I said, "You're right. I haven't been to Antarctica yet." And
Hold my rum.
eight months later, that was it. It was hold my rum. 8 months later, bam, I was there doing the
No.
class.
How long did you stay there? When you get to Antarctica, I mean, it's not, you can't just stay
So
for long, right?
yeah, we stayed on the boat. So we docked. What would happen? After we got through open waters, went through South Georgia. We went to the peninsula, and so we'll dock on the shore. We'll jump into these small boats called Zodiacs, and that's when we went onto the continent itself. And yeah, that's when we'll say we're on land and we're millions of penguins and trying to get them to drink rum and that type of stuff. Oh, and the other great thing, I nearly forgot. The other great thing there, I found a bar there in a research station, probably the most southernest bar in the world. It was called the Faraday bar in the Venezuela research station, and they built a bar. They made their own vodka. My goodness, homemade vodka inside there. But I gave them a couple bottles of rum, and they were so happy. It was like 12 guys. They had been there for like 8-9 months because they were on like a 18-month tour thing before they could go back home, and. So they had this bar and they had beer in there and they had vodka. And when tourists or people come on the ships and that type of thing, they come there and they buy a postcard and they pay like $20 for a postcard. They'll post it and then it'll probably reach home about 6 months after you got home because it takes so long. But at least you got a postcard from Antarctica. But the funny thing was this bar, when we went in there, bearing in mind it was just 12 guys in there, I'm looking up to the ceiling and there was like about 30, 40 different braziers hanging down. I'm like, guys, what's this all about? He says, oh, because every now and again we get visitors, we get the ships coming in and that type of stuff, and tourists and that type of stuff. And because we sell our own vodka and that, like, which is really expensive, it's like 30, $40 for a like 10 mils, 10 liters. It's like, but it was from Antarctica. He said, it's distilled in Antarctica.
Yep.
He said, well, we sell it for that. But if anyone wants to exchange their bra for a bottle of this vodka, we exchange for free. It's bartering. So I'm looking up and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of bras out there. You've exchanged a lot of vodka. I'm like, you guys are crazy. And I thought it was quite funny. And in the UK, I'm a guest on a TV show, a drinks TV show where I make cocktails for guests and things like that. And I'm in a green room about 3-4 months later. I'm in a green room and this lady sitting in the corner and she was the first woman to actually cross Antarctica from east to west by herself. And we're sitting there, she was talking about that. And I'm like, wow, you know what? I was in Antarctica like 4 months ago. She was like, really? I'm like, yeah. And I said, wait a minute. You didn't ever by any chance go to the Faraday bar in the Venezuela research station? She said, yes, I did. I had the most expensive vodka I've ever had. I'm thinking she said, yeah, because she paid $30, $40 for it. It says, no, I exchanged one of my bras. And bras are expensive. Bras are expensive now. I have no idea how much they cost, but apparently they cost a lot of money. So we was having a laugh at that. But I actually met someone who did exchange her bra for one of those vodkas inside there. So yeah, we found a funny
small world.
Yeah, but yeah, that was so funny. But yeah, that was one of my favorite trips and a really funny rum story connected with that.
Yeah, unbelievable.
That's crazy.
You go to be the Global Rum Ambassador.
All 8. Good Lord, all 7 continents. Yeah, I mean, just one more question from me. So, seeing how rum has evolved from, the Zacapas of the world, again, nothing against any particular brands, but how consumers have, through tasting and realizing, unadulterated rums, etc., Here in the US, agave is actually pretty bad as well as far as lack of transparency.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
what's your outlook? Because we have come a very far way, right? We've gone away from the 23 years on labels and things like that.
yeah, yeah.
Is there, because Europe has a lot more standards with the US, do you, just given everything that you've seen, do you think the push for transparency will actually translate to, I don't know if it's ever going to be nutritional labels or
Yeah, yeah,
ingredients,
yeah,
or maybe it's just a simple one liner of sweetener added or whatever. But
yeah,
do you see that kind of where it's going? Because consumers are very savvy, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I don't see it going in a place where anyone or any rum company is going to put sweeteners added. You will get a few brands that would say no added sugar
Mm,
on there, but then you have some brands saying, why should we have to put that on there? Why should we
sure.
have to put no added sugar? Because we've never put sugar in our product. Why should we pander down to the people that do? If you're going to buy our product, you should know that we don't add sugar because that's the way we make our rums. So that's where I think it's going to go. With
Okay.
that 1% we spoke about earlier, they know this. That 9%, they're knowing this, and they will then start to influence some of that 90%. And the way to get that message across is geographical indications. It's
Yep.
understanding appellations. That is for me the only way it's going to happen. And then once you get in that geography, is then understanding or having your favorite distilleries that make products. I mean, all three of us, if we see the word Hamden on a bottle, our minds start to say, wow, is it going to be this style of rum? Is it going to be that? Which mark's going to be? Is it going to be this type of fermentation? Is it going to be funky? It's going to be, well, we have a prejudgment of what that particular product's going to be. It's the same way as if I say to you, a Lafroy, an Ardbeg, you have an idea. It's going to be smoky. It's going to be peaty.
Yep.
It's Scotch whiskey. You know it's aged for a minimum of 3 years. It's single malt Scotch whiskey, so it's from one single distillery inside there. So there are certain rules and parameters that is associated with Scotch that people that understand and drink Scotch know that that is the transparency. It's from that area. We know
Yep.
the rules and regulations are there. Now that's what we want in rum. Now in America, unfortunately, the only sugarcane spirit that has an apple or GI is cachaça. That's the only
Yep.
one. Yeah. So if I sell a Jamaica rum into America, it's the same as selling a St. Lucian or Guyanese or Martinique or Dominican Republic or a Nicaraguan or Panama rum into those countries. And all of these rums are made differently. They have different rules and regulations and interpretations of what they are. This is the reason why you have countries like Jamaica that have a GI that are now fighting not only to maintain and strengthen that GI, but to get that recognized in the USA and to get it recognized in the EU. Because once people see the word Jamaica rum on the label, they know exactly what it is. We don't have to have the transparency of it has
Sure.
no sugar in it because it's against the law in Jamaica. We don't have to worry about spices added to it because it's against the law in Jamaica. You know it's made in Jamaica with the waters of there, and it's got the Jamaican know-how. It's been 100% aged in Jamaica. So all of these things, the trademark, as in the GI, and the protection of certain products is
Sure.
important, and that's where rum has to go. A lot of people, when they talk about trademark GIs now, they think it's just about the protecting the product at source. No, it's protecting the product where it's sold. Because at present, in Europe and definitely in America, if I bought Jamaica rum, for example, because it's not protected as it should be in Europe, I can add some Guatemalan spirit to it, blend it, and still call it Jamaica rum.
Yep.
I couldn't do that with cognac. I couldn't do it with bourbon. I couldn't do it with Tennessee sipping whiskey or American whiskey. I couldn't do it with Scotch. But at the moment, that's what you can do with Jamaica. Although it has a GI at source, it's still not respected, or that trademark is not respected in the
Sure.
places where it's been sold. So that's where rum has to go, where we're now talking about rum may be seen as the overriding category, but then it forks off into Jamaica rum, Barbados rum,
Yep.
Guyanese rum, or Demerara rum, because Demerara has its own recognized GI in Europe, but it's not recognized in America.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, all the work that was called, all the work that Kamal's doing in Bosco and Guyana, and the rest of the team to get that GI recognized, just basically gets thrown out the window in the States, just because of the fact that they going back to the whole trade thing, the recognizing that trademark or that recognizing that GI that protects rum from the Demerara region. So that for me is the transparency. The before we can have transparency about what's added and blah blah, we need to have that conversation. We need to have that understanding that geography is an important part of making rum.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's absolutely fair. And then I'm the way my mind works is I'm already starting to get overwhelmed of, okay, what happens when you start putting in like the Philippines and South Africa? I bought for my birthday, I bought myself a bottle of rum from Uganda off Whiskey Exchange.
I
can't remember the name of it. I'll send it to you. But
I know some brands coming out of Uganda. Yeah. But here's my answer to that question. If you start throwing Philippines inside there, you start throwing Mauritius, and then Uganda eventually one day, South Africa, Fiji, right? What that will do is, yes, there'll be lots of different definition or different styles of rum out there. But once that country becomes a major force in producing their own rum or their own style or own definition, we now start to prejudge that rum. Connected to that geography. It doesn't mean it's going to be good or bad. We now at least have some sort of transparency to say, well, in Fiji, let me look up the rules in Fiji. Oh, they've just decided that we have to use 100% Fiji sugarcane and molasses. We can't import anything. Oh, we have to use Fijian water when we're watering down our product. Or they might say no water's allowed to be added to it. It has to be natural fermentation of cane juice in one of the regions in Fiji. I'm just throwing it out there, but we don't have to know the ins and outs of every single bit of the rules and regulations of what defines a Fijian rum. But what we do have to know, as that 90%, Fijian rum, it tastes great, brilliant, yeah, I'm going to buy it from Fiji. But then that 90% that's not being hoodwinked or taken advantage of, they won't know that the 9% and the 1% know that, yes, it tastes good, but here's the thing. It's 100% Fijian rum. The last person that touched that bottle was a Fijian. The last person, the know-how behind it was Fijian know-how, as in it was local products, it was local sugarcane, it was local molasses, or it might be imported molasses, but it was made locally. It was connected to the geography of Fiji. The 9 and the 1% will know that. The 90% is not going to care as long as it tastes good. And if they had a good Fijian rum, because it's protected as a trademark, they're now going to taste another great Fijian rum because that's what they like. But I tell you what, that 90% won't get. They won't get a product that has been distilled in Fiji, taken to Jamaica. I've then blown some Jamaican smoke inside there, added a little bit of sugar and spices, and then sold it as Fijian rum. I also aged it a little bit in Jamaica. That's what the 90% not going to get, because it's protected. So yeah, there could be 50 different countries with different styles. As rum drinkers, that means more rum for us, but it also means that natural transparency is there, because each rum is connected to its geography, and the geography have set their own rules. And of course, someone like yourself, someone like Constantine, or someone like one of the other guys out there who's going to create a website that has all the rules and regulations of each of those products in there. So you just go on an app and say, tell me about St. Lucian rum, tell me about Guyanese rums, all the rules. Just the same way as you can go, there must be an app out there that says, tell me the rules of Japanese whiskey, tell me the rules of Scotch whiskey, tell me the rules of Irish whiskey, tell me the rules of American whiskey. But how many other countries make whiskey? I'm sure. Exactly. That's my point. So it doesn't matter how many countries make it. It's about the ones that we're going to buy into and understand and know. There's going to be lots of other rums out there that have no rules, but they might be from, no disrespect, they may be from Kathmandu. No, Kathmandu make good rum because Nepal got some good rums. They might be from Afghanistan.
Yeah, sure.
Now, I'm not saying, I don't know if Afghanistan make rum or whiskey. I don't know how good they are. They may be good, maybe bad. We don't know, but they're not known. But if they did start to grow and get better, then they're going to be maybe looking to create some sort of a appellation or protection, the PGI or GI, to protect their style of rum. Just in case another big company, or just in case people like me come in there and say, right, I'm going to take advantage. I'm going to buy some product from you. I'm going to take it to my country. I'm going to do what I want with it. And then I'm going to call it Afghanistan rum as such. People complained about St. Lucia doing that, as in protecting St. Lucia rum, when there's only one distillery there. They're doing it because in the future, there could be other people that would come and take their product and take their brand name. So protection, do it now. That's how I see the future going. And that is, for me, true transparency in rum.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, just couldn't have said it better, just from the standpoint of, to your point, hey, if I'm picking up this bottle from the 9% that I would consider myself in, hey, I know that, like, if it says 4 score, it's going to be great. If it says Worthy Park, this is what it's going to be. If it says And then as far as just going and educating the masses, but I think that's the right approach, because the other thing too is there's still people that I'm sure there's people that you talk to too, Ian, and you, Constantine, of, I love a good dark rum. When somebody comes into the bar I work at and says, I love dark rum, and I'm always like, well, so just quick question. What is dark rum? What does that mean to you? Not being combative, but then it's more just trying to say, oh, okay, so you really like Barbados rum, or you like Trinidad rum, or you like this. And you never want to overwhelm people. I always like try to be like, oh, okay, cool. You like Trinidad rum? Do you like Angostura? Or do you like the higher proof stuff from TDL? What's that? Okay. I'm going to pour you some Angostura first. And then, maybe way down the line. The first time I got a bottle of the Velier 21-year-old Coroni for my birthday. Nice. I got some nice friends. But the first time I had that, I was like, oh my God, this is insane pot stilled rum. And found out, oh no, I was in Singapore and it was like, oh no, that's column still. And my mind was just like, wait a minute. How was that? How is it so punchy?
Fermentation as well. It's all you're doing is concentrating those flavors in that fermentation and then distilling that. You don't want to distill it away, so you're keeping that flavor. Constantine knows this. You're keeping that flavor inside there, and especially if you're using certain techniques to create that funky wash or beer or wine or Vesu, whatever you want to call it, and that type of stuff. If you want to keep all that, I remember that things like Caroni were made for blending. I still don't understand why people drink it, but hey, to each their own. To each their own. At the end of the day, but it's still a desirable collectible rum, especially by that 1% and the 9%.
I mean, even so, like in Singapore too, I had an 85.2% deal. I had it with you, Constantine. It's from Rum Deluxe, 85.2% DOK, and I tasted it, and I'm glad I tasted it. But then also, I'm like, why? Why is the proof at 85%? Like, why is it here? Like, I'm glad it was an experience, but
the answer's in the DOK. There's a few letters missing. If you spell the word "don't know," take out some letters, it ends up DOK.
That's pretty good. Well, I mean, Ian, it's absolutely lovely chatting with you. So for our folks that are listening, best way to follow you, best way to get their hands on Equiano. We have people listening. Best way to follow me is just on Instagram, the Rum Ambassador. I'm always on there, just talking about some of my stories, traveling and that type of stuff, and just sharing ideas. I'm always looking to share ideas and stories about rum. The book, you can get it on Amazon. Actually, it's just been translated into German and Italian. So I was very surprised when the publisher said, "Oh yeah, by the way, he's doing so well. We're doing it in Italian and German." Like, oh my goodness! So I've just got the Italian copy. As you say, there we go.
I can't even read it because it's in Italian. But but some of my friends from Germany have ordered the German one. So you can get it on Amazon. Rum, a tasting course where I just talk about the journey of rum and the culture of rum as well. And I talk about a lot of other cane spirits that are miscalled rum from around the world, which I've been focusing a lot on as such. So there's the books. Where else can you get hold of me? Some events. Hopefully I might be back with you guys in California at Tiki Oasis. Hopefully I'll be out there in August. Constantine, I'm definitely coming to Fiji. So I'm traveling as much as I can. As I said, I'm still learning about rum category. Some people might think, you know so much about the rum. I'm like, I might know a little tiny bit more than most people, but I don't know much. I'm still learning. I'm always what's called growing. So I'm looking to travel, go to some more distilleries, old distilleries I've been to before, but also some new distilleries, because that for me is for what I do, talking about rum and trying to pass on the passion about the category of rum. I have to talk about it from the heart and not from what I've seen on the PowerPoint presentation. So so it's more traveling. Instagram, you can follow me on those travels. Get the book, please, and just share the love of rum. That's what it's about. Rum love, rum life,
rum life. Hell yeah. Well, I mean, Ian, you're the man. Keep doing God's work. Thank you for everything that you have done. You're an inspiration to so many of us. So thanks for everything. Anything else, Constantine?
I think that's it. So we've got the book. We've got Equiano. Go out and find it.
Equiano. You can get it online as well. You can get it on Amazon. Passion Spirits, as you said in the States. Yeah, you can get it.
Awesome.
and all good bars and some bad bars as well.
Well, they're
There you
good
go.
bars now that Equiano's there. I'm just saying.
Absolutely. It's
Awesome.
elevating, right?
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks, everyone. Remember to hit
thanks,
the
everybody.
subscribe button, look up Ian Burrell, and then who do we got next, Bryan?
Oh yeah, we got Maggie Campbell.
Oh,
And
Maggie Camp, I love Maggie.
Maggie's jumping
Yeah.
on to talk about her new venture.
I love
so-
Maggie. Well, when you speak to Maggie, say Ian said hi, and I'll give her a virtual hug. Although
I'll say it
let's give her a
exactly
hug in
like that.
Barbados. There you go, virtual hug. And
Hi.
I'm gonna go and see her as well down in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Oh, love it.
Back in the States now from Barbados and Louisiana.
Yeah. Well, I was with Maggie what's called back in February in Barbados.
Did you have so in Barbados? I saw she was posting pictures of king cake, and I spent a little time in Baton Rouge when I was a kid, and man, I was like, oh, stop posting the king cake pictures. Oh, it was amazing. Well, thanks a lot. Ian. We really enjoyed it.
Brilliant, man. Thank you guys. Yeah, thanks for your time. And yeah.
Awesome.
Good.
Cheers,
Good to see
everybody.
you guys in IRL.
Whoop. Heck yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Cheers.
All right, cheers, guys.